Oh, perfect. Okay, the line is finally moved. Excuse me, barista.
You're standing a little close to the screen, and you appear to be sweating slightly. What can I get for you today?
Okay, here we go. Well, I mean, I guess, could I get the sparkly, magical, unicorn color-changing surprise, which is uh, clearly the cream of the crop, but I don't know the ingredients or something, and make it a venti? Hot.
Hmm.
For here, I suppose.
Halt. Stop immediately. That right there is a conversational catastrophe engineered for maximum frustration.
A catastrophe. But I used well, and I suppose. I thought I sounded, thoughtful and deferential.
You sounded like a confused person trying to translate a direct internal demand into like three different levels of excessive politeness,
Oh,
all while asking for a drink that doesn't exist on the menu without its recipe. You used, I counted, 5 unnecessary filler words in about 6 seconds. You contradicted yourself, and you wasted 30 seconds of everyone's time.
have you ever made this embarrassing mistake? You're trying so hard to sound fluent, but you just end up sounding confusing, or maybe even a little bit rude.
We have all been there.
Yeah, standing at the counter, your English brain just completely freezes up and you're desperate to sound native, but you just end up making noise.
Welcome back to Daily English Podcast, the place where we transform your functional English into fluent, confident communication.
Our mission today is to take all the sources, the linguistic analyses, the barista critiques, the cultural guides, and turn you into a coffee ordering ninja.
Someone who is clear, efficient, and most importantly, culturally aware.
We're diving deep into the exact language, the proprietary sizing systems, the micro-level physics of milk,
Oh, yeah?
and the cultural minefields of the modern coffee shop.
Yeah.
But before we fix this conversational mess, please hit like and subscribe to Daily English Podcast right now.
Let's get you well informed.
Okay, let's unpack this initial disaster. We are moving from textbook robot English to, what do we call it?
Real life, cool English. And you committed what we call the ordering crime, not just with your indecision, but with your core request structure.
Okay, I was going to use I want to, but then I remember that sounds way too direct, so I improvised with, could I get
And that improvisation, I mean, it wasn't bad in itself, but it was just buried under layers and layers of unnecessary verbal cushioning.
Okay.
Let's start with a fundamental structure. The biggest conversational crime when you're ordering in, say, Anglo-American contexts is using a strong, direct, imperative or statement.
Like, I want a large coffee.
Exactly that.
But why does I want sound so strong? I'm just stating a desire. It feels honest.
It does, but culturally, especially in these kinds of transactional settings, English speakers rely really heavily on modal verbs to soften demands.
Right.
I want sounds like a mandate. It's a declaration of intent that almost forces compliance. It just lacks that social grace that acknowledges the service provider as a person and not, a vending machine.
So you're saying when you use modal verbs like could, would, or will, you're basically framing your order as a polite request for assistance.
Yes, and that is the default expectation of politeness.
So the power phrases we're about to talk about aren't just about being nice. They're about navigating that very specific cultural aversion to direct demands.
Precisely. The source material outlines 3 essential power phrases. These are the most common, the most natural, and the most polite ways to initiate your request.
Okay, let's hear them.
The first, and I would say it's the highest frequency choice, is, can I get a...
Simple, quick question, very transactional. Can I get a medium latte, please?
Perfect. And that please at the end just acts as a final courtesy signal. It really seals the deal.
Okay, what's number 2?
The second option is a little more casual. It signals comfort and ease, and it uses that key feature of relaxed, natural speech. The contraction.
Ah, the contraction.
And that is, I'll have a, as in I will have a.
I find contractions challenging sometimes, I have to admit, but they definitely make you sound less stiff. Like, I'll have a cappuccino with oat milk, please.
Exactly, and see how that suggests the decision is already made. It speeds up the whole process.
Right, signals conversational efficiency.
Mm-hmm. And the third option, this is the one that works in almost any ordering context, whether you're at a cafe, a drive-thru, or even a slightly more formal sit-down lunch.
Okay, the universal one.
It is. I'd like a fewer. As in, I would like O.
The magic phrase, "I'd like a large iced Americano, please." So those three, can I get a, I'll have an A and I'd like a, are basically the non-negotiable foundations for fluency here.
They establish the correct polite dynamic immediately. Which brings us to the next point. Let's tackle the chaos you created by layering these phrases with too many non-functional linguistic elements.
You mean the filler word fiasco?
The filler word fiasco.
I was trying to buy time. My brain genuinely couldn't remember the difference between venti and grande.
And that is a legitimate, totally functional reason to use fillers. It signals that you're thinking, but
Yeah.
you overused them. You piled on well and all together.
And that signals.
It signals not just hesitation, but genuine confusion or maybe a lack of preparation, which just slows the whole transaction down for everyone.
So what's the difference between a functional filler and one that's just distracting?
Well, the functional ones serve really clear purposes. Pausing, softening, or clarifying. The distracting ones, particularly when you use them over and over, can really undermine your credibility.
How so?
For example, the sources note that if you use like or literally over and over again when it's not needed, it can signal insecurity. Or it's sometimes associated with specific age groups or social markers, and it can lead people to focus on your word choice instead of your message.
Okay, so let's break down the good ones, the functional categories.
All right, first, the sounds of hesitation. These are the quick pause fillers. Or.
But how is saying any better than just being silent? Silence feels more polite to me, but also kind of awkward.
It's so awkward, and silence can often be interpreted as either being rude or just. Complete inattention
Ah,
is an audible signal. It says, I'm processing this request, please hold on for just a moment. It creates a totally appropriate conversational pause.
can you give me an example?
Sure, if the barista asks you, do you want that with whole milk or 2%? And you're still deciding, you can reply, that's a good question. I think I'll take 2%.
Okay, that makes sense. It fills the space.
And we also have, which is exclusively for thoughtful consideration. You use this when you're really weighing the options on the menu or that the barista has given you.
So like, I like the dark roast flavor profile, but I think I'll go with the cold brew today.
Perfect. It shows you're engaged.
So those are for my internal processing. What about fillers that, manage the flow of the conversation itself?
That's where well comes in. Well is a fantastic transition and softening word. It can preface an answer that might be a little complex, or it can stall for a tiny moment before you deliver an important request.
Like if the shop is really crowded and they ask if I need a receipt.
Exactly. You could say, well, it's pretty busy in here, so I'll just skip the receipt. It provides a nice conversational lead-in.
And what about the crucial task of correcting myself? I often misspeak in English, and then I get all flustered trying to backtrack.
That is the explicit function of I mean. It is used to clarify, to emphasize a point, or to quickly correct something you just said wrong.
Okay, so I ordered the latte, but I actually wanted a flat white. I mean, they're very similar, but I prefer the texture of the flat white.
That is a perfect use case. It instantly flags the correction for the listener. They know exactly what's happening.
Suddenly, the functional use of fillers feels so much more strategic. They're like punctuation marks for your thoughts, not just random noise.
Exactly. Use them sparingly and use the right one for the job. Just don't layer them up like you did in the beginning.
Right.
Now, let's move from words to cups. The menu mayhem and the secret menu scrutiny.
Okay, I need to understand why asking for the sparkly, magical unicorn color-changing surprise makes me instantly high maintenance.
Because you were asking the barista to implicitly memorize a recipe that probably has 5 or 6 specific modifications. These off-the-menu items are usually internet fads, like the butterbeer frappuccino or some specialized holiday drink that was shared on social media. Baristas are not always familiar with them, and they're almost always really complex to make.
So the burdens of knowledge falls on me, the customer, not on the service provider.
Absolutely. The rule for fluency here is, if you want a customized off-menu drink, You must know the specific ingredients and modifications that are required.
So I should be prepared to list them out clearly.
Yes. Something like, I'd like a venti frappuccino, but could I get 2 pumps of caramel syrup, 1 pump of vanilla syrup, and topped with cookie crumbles? If you fumble those modifications, you're instantly flagged as requiring a lot of extra labor.
Got it. Okay, now let's resolve the size confusion. The notorious Starbucks sizing trap. This system is a huge barrier for non-native speakers.
It really is.
Why, oh why, couldn't they just use small, medium, and large?
The sources confirm this is entirely a matter of history, branding, and atmosphere. When the founder, Howard Schultz, first brought that Italian espresso bar concept to the US, he wanted to elevate the whole experience.
Make it feel different from a regular American coffee shop.
Exactly. Using these proprietary Italian-inspired names was a way to create a more European, high-end, almost theatrical environment. It's very effective branding, but it is confusing sizing.
So we need to break down the names versus the actual ounce counts. This is where precision and efficiency are lost.
Okay, let's do it. Start at the very beginning.
The absolute smallest.
That's the 3-ounce demi-cup, and it's used exclusively for double espresso shots.
Right.
Then we move to the smallest prepared beverage size, which is the short, at 8 ounces.
8 ounces, that's often what I would consider a standard single-serving cup of coffee at home. But at Starbucks, it's rarely available, and it's the smallest.
Correct. It's typically only offered for certain hot beverages. Moving up from there, we hit the smallest standard size that's widely available.
And that's
That is the tall at 12 ounces, which, despite the name suggesting it's big, is essentially the small size.
tall as 12 ounces. Got it. So what's the standard medium?
That would be the grande, which ironically means large in Italian.
Of course it does.
The grande is 16 ounces, and it's the really popular medium size. This size offers that ideal balanced ratio of caffeine and milk or flavoring that a lot of customers are looking for.
Okay, now for the one I mistakenly ordered, venti.
Venti. This means 20 in Italian, and it refers to its capacity for hot drinks, which is 20 ounces.
But I've heard venti sizes can change depending on if it's hot or cold. Is that where the confusion comes in?
This is where it gets really interesting and requires a little deep dive into liquid displacement physics.
Physics, okay.
Venti hot drinks are 20 ounces. Venti cold drinks, however, are 24 ounces.
Why the 4-ounce difference? That's 20% more volume for a cold drink of the same name.
The extra volume, that 4 ounces, is designed specifically to accommodate the ice.
Ah,
If the cup only held 20 ounces total, the volume of the ice would displace a huge amount of the actual beverage. You'd effectively be getting less drink for your money compared to the hot version.
so the 24-ounce cold venti ensures you get a 20-ounce beverage, plus the necessary room for all the ice needed to keep it cold.
It's an economic compensation for the volume lost to freezing water.
That is a crucial
Oh, thank
insight.
you.
It's compensating for the displacement of the solid component, the ice. So finally, what's the largest size?
The beast is the Trenta, which means 30 at 30 ounces.
30.
Yes, and this is exclusively for cold drinks like iced teas and refreshers. You cannot order a hot Trenta beverage.
So if I'm stressed out and I forget all of this history in Italian, can I just say small, medium, and large?
Baristas generally advise that yes, you absolutely can. If the proprietary names are causing you anxiety, just using small, medium, and large maintains ultimate clarity.
So I might not sound like I've mastered the brand-specific language.
But clarity and efficiency will outweigh theatrical fluency every single time.
Now that we've mastered the polite structure and clarified the menu, we're moving on to the crucial moments. Customizing your drink with confidence.
Yes, we're moving into the Fluent Fixes segment, focused on efficiency and specific vocabulary.
I am ready to be precise. Less chaos, more certainty.
Excellent. I will give you a common coffee shop situation. You try to respond with your old, vague habits, and then I will give you the native power phrase, the Fluent Fix.
All right, I'm ready.
Fluent Fix 1, destination. The barista asks you, for here or to go?
Okay, I am planning to occupy a table for 4 hours while working on my laptop. So I say,
Hmm.
my friend and I are going to sit down and drink this now.
That's overly wordy. I mean, it's grammatically fine, but it just wastes the barista's energy. The simplest, most concise answer is always the most fluent.
So what's the fluent fix?
The fluent fix is for here, please, or if you're leaving, to go, please. It's transactional. It signals you immediately understand the options. That concise response is so characteristic of native speakers just conserving energy in these high-frequency interactions.
To go, please. Efficiency noted. All right, fluent fix 2. Milk alternatives. You need a non-dairy milk, and the barista asks, what kind of milk would you like?
Okay, your turn.
I know what I want. Regular milk, but if you don't have that, I'll take liquid made from a nut, but not the one that tastes like beans.
That is forcing the barista to guess. Native speakers use the specific names. The fluent fix is simply, I'll have a latte with oat milk, please.
Let's dedicate some serious detail to these milk alternatives because the subtle differences really matter to the final quality of the drink. You mentioned the chemistry of these liquids. Why is oat milk like the current champion for coffee?
It's all down to its molecular composition and how it behaves under heat. Oat milk contains a higher content of fat and often protein, especially in the barista-specific blends, compared to something like standard almond milk.
And that high-fat content is crucial.
It's crucial because it mimics the natural fat structure of cow's milk, which allows it to emulsify beautifully when you steam it. This results in that creamy, stable microfoam, which is essential for a high-quality latte or cappuccino.
So it's the composition that stops it from separating and ensures you get that velvety texture.
Exactly. And it also has a pretty neutral, slightly sweet flavor profile that doesn't overpower the espresso. In contrast, almond milk, which was kind of the original alternative,
Right.
it's much lower in fat and protein, so it has a lighter, often thinner mouthfeel.
And what about that curdling warning you mentioned earlier?
That is the technical detail you really need to remember. Almond milk is structurally unstable when you introduce it to highly acidic or high-temperature environments.
And espresso is naturally acidic.
Very. So if the almond milk isn't tempered correctly, the low protein content can destabilize and literally curdle. You get these visible clumps in the drink. This is why baristas use specific techniques like gentle heating and choosing low acidity espresso blends just to minimize that reaction.
That is fascinating. The curdling is a chemical reaction between the low-fat protein and the espresso's acid.
Wow.
Then we have soy milk. It sits somewhere between almond and oat. It's creamy and thick, and its protein content allows it to froth pretty reliably.
Mm.
But it's a little more reactive to heat than oat milk, and some people find it gives off a stronger, kind of beany aftertaste, which is why a lot of shops now just favor oat.
I appreciate the depth on the frothing science. So if I want the drink to taste like a high-quality dairy drink, I should definitely stick with oat milk.
And here's a practical, behind-the-counter tip from the source material. Always shake the dairy-free milk carton well before you use it.
What's that?
Because these alternatives have fewer artificial emulsifiers than traditional milk, so the solids tend to settle at the bottom. Shaking just ensures you get a consistent texture throughout your entire order.
I love those little insider tips. Okay, moving on. Fluent Fix 3. Customizing quantity and type. I need my coffee stronger, but I must absolutely minimize the sweetness.
Okay, what's your old response? Make it super strong, but not too sweet, and make it with a different kind of coffee, because I don't like the house blend.
That is vague, subjective, and demanding. What is super strong? What is not too sweet? We use precise objective modifiers. Extra, less, and instead.
So how does that look in a fluent request?
For strength or quantity, you request a quantifiable modification. You use extra for additions. For example, could I get an extra shot of espresso? Or you use less for subtractions. Could I have less syrup, please?
Oh, notice the shift from less sugar to less syrup. That's a good detail.
It is, because many drinks use liquid syrup, not granulated sugar. Using the correct term adds that extra layer of technical fluency.
That distinction is so important. And how do I change a fundamental ingredient?
You use instead. This is for swapping a core component. Can I get a decaf instead? Or I'll have the vanilla syrup instead of the caramel. These short words communicate complex modifications instantly and just eliminate all ambiguity.
Okay, before we wrap up this customization section, we have to address two critical pronunciation details that signal instant fluency.
A crucial check. Many learners make mistakes on these two key terms. First up, espresso. E-S-P-R-E-S-S-O.
I have heard this pronounced espresso constantly.
And it is instantly recognizable as non-native. You have to pronounce it as espresso. There is no X sound, no X sound in that word. It's a hard S. Mastering this one subtle sound elevates your perceived competence immediately.
Espresso. I'm practicing that right now. And the second one.
Latte, L-A-T-T. The native pronunciation, which comes from Italian, is latte, not latte or latte. That distinct stressed ending te is the standard.
Small details, but they have a massive impact on your confidence.
For sure. Final part of our Fluent fixes, Fluent Fix 4, the final transaction and confirmation. You've paid and the barista asks for your name.
Okay, I'm going to proactively eliminate the pain of being called Casey, when my name is Casey, by proactively spelling.
Exactly. The Fluent Fix relies on anticipatory spelling. Give your name clearly, and if it is complex or uncommon or just commonly misspelled, immediately spell it out without them having to ask.
It's Alex. A-L-E-X.
Ah.
That preempts that awkward interaction where they have to ask you to spell it out later.
It just signals proactive efficiency. And finally, the moment of truth. Your name is called. What is the concise, native way to confirm it's yours?
I've seen people shout, mine, but that feels a little aggressive.
A little bit. The power phrase is simple, friendly, and efficient. That's me. Thanks. It's quick, it confirms your identity, and it includes a brief, necessary courtesy.
We've established the language at the counter, but the coffee shop environment is, well, it's full of unspoken cultural rules, these etiquette traps that secretly annoy baristas and fellow customers.
It's true. We are now entering the cultural pitfalls zone.
Oh.
And this is critical because real fluency incorporates cultural competence. You could use perfect grammar and still be seen as rude if you violate these unspoken social contracts.
So you have four major traps to detail.
Let's start with the line.
Pitfall 1. Cultural wait times. I know the U.S. calls it a line.
Right, and this lexical difference is actually important. In the U.S., it's a line. In the U.K. and Australia, it is universally called a queue. Q-U-E-U-E.
And while both words describe people waiting, you're saying the cultural weight of the terms is really different.
Significantly different. I've heard British people treat the queue like a sacred ritual.
It's not just ritual. It's an intrinsic social contract. In the UK, the source material says that queuing is treated with almost religious solemnity. The expectation is absolute order, first come, first served, no gaps, and no conversation that implies you might deviate from that orderly path.
So what happens if you do? If you deviate? If you try to cut in or merge lines awkwardly or leave a big space?
It's viewed as a moral breach.
So what are the consequences? In the U.S., someone might just, glare at you.
In the UK, the reprimands are often passive-aggressive and social, not a direct confrontation. The sources describe the consequences as noticeable nonverbal reprimands, such as severe throat clearing and coughs, all directed at the offender.
So it's the silent social pressure of disapproval?
Which can be just as potent. The lesson is simple. Find the end and stick to the line until it's your turn. Absolutely.
Do not anger the cue gods with awkward merging. Okay, pitfall 2. The stare down.
I am so guilty of this. I stand right at the pickup counter, watching my drink being made. I feel like I need to make sure they got the oat milk right.
And this is exactly the rude habit to avoid. Baristas overwhelmingly report that standing at the counter and intensely staring at them while they prepare your drink creates this unnecessary pressure. They describe it as having an active audience or feeling like they're performing under surveillance.
But if I pay for an extra chai, shouldn't I make sure I receive it?
The implicit trust is key here. Your job ends when you pay. Your attention should move somewhere else. Staring doesn't make the drink faster, and it certainly doesn't foster a positive environment.
So what's the solution?
The simple solution is just physical distance. After paying, move away from the register in the preparation area. Wait patiently at the designated pickup zone or, look at your phone or read the menu board again.
Right.
The analogy is simple. You wouldn't stand 3 feet away and stare at the cook preparing your food in a restaurant kitchen. You should extend the same courtesy to the barista.
I need to remember the stare down is a symptom of mistrust and impatience, which is culturally inappropriate in that setting.
Absolutely. Now, let's discuss the great cultural divider. Money, pitfall 3, the gratuity gauge, tipping. This is a political and economic topic that is tied fundamentally to location.
The U.S. expectation is the highest.
Right. Whoa, significantly. In the United States, tipping is customary for almost all fast casual and counter services, including coffee takeaway. And this practice is entirely built around the unique wage structure in the U.S.
Okay, can you explain that structure for those who might not be familiar with the economic context?
Sure. Under federal law, the minimum wage for employees who earn tips, it's called the federal tipped minimum wage, is dramatically lower than the standard minimum wage. It's often fixed around $2.13 per hour, though it does vary by state.
Wow.
This means that the majority of the employee's income is expected to come directly from tips. So when you choose not to tip for a service, you are effectively requiring the employee to cover the cost of their own labor out of their pocket up to the full minimum wage.
So in the U.S., tipping $1 or 20% on a simple coffee is an economic necessity for the worker, not just a bonus for good service.
Precisely. The expectation is high, and a lack of a tip is often seen as a direct comment on the quality of the service, even if you are just grabbing a simple drip coffee.
Okay, but the culture is fundamentally different in places like the UK, Australia, and New Zealand.
Completely different.
What's the economic assumption there?
The assumption is that hospitality staff are paid a mandatory living wage or a much higher standard minimum wage set by the government, which means tips are not necessary for their core income.
Right.
Therefore, tipping for counter service in cafes is not expected. It is purely optional, and it's usually reserved for exceptional service or maybe sit-down table service.
So if I'm in Sydney or London and I walk up to the counter and pay $5 for my latte, I should not feel pressured by the electronic tip prompt on the screen.
You should not. Those electronic payment screens often prompt for tips globally, but culturally, you are not obligated to tip for minimal counter service in these regions. The source material even notes that in some areas, the forced presence of these electronic tip screens for basic counter service is met with skepticism.
And it's sometimes viewed as an imported political attempt to depress fair labor wages.
Exactly. Understanding this difference is just key to navigating the culture.
That context is invaluable. It removes the stress of trying to apply a U.S. custom to an entirely different economic environment.
And finally, pitfall 4, table hogging and messes. We all love the coffee shop atmosphere for working, but when is it rude to occupy space?
I often see a single person working on a massive laptop at a table that's meant for 4 people. Is that acceptable?
That is the core rule of proportionality. If the cafe is busy, and busy usually means during peak breakfast lunch or that mid-morning rush, do not occupy a 4-top or a big communal table if you are a single person.
So you have to choose the smallest appropriate space.
Yes, like a 2-top or a counter seat. The business depends on maximizing seated customers, and occupying that premium real estate prevents them from serving groups.
This leads to the debate on table claiming. Is it rude to set down your backpack to reserve a table before you've even ordered?
My instinct says yes, because I haven't really justified my presence yet with a purchase.
The consensus on this is nuanced. It is generally considered perfectly normal to quickly set down your bag or jacket to claim a table before ordering, but only if 2 conditions are met.
Okay, what are they?
1, your purchase is absolutely imminent, meaning you're moving to the line immediately, and 2, seating is not critically sparse. The imminent purchase justifies the temporary claim.
And the important exception to that.
If the cafe is totally packed and there is a visible line of people waiting for any table, you must order first. We've covered polite phrasing, the science of milk, sizing traps, and the cultural dangers of the queue and the tip jar. Let's do a rapid-fire summary.
Okay. Ditch the demanding, I want, and anchor your requests with, can I get O? I'll have a pen or I'd like a. Be hyper-specific with your customizations, using extra, less, and instead, and avoid the stare down.
And remember the venti rule.
Mm-hmm.
20 ounces hot, 24 ounces cold, because of the volume displacement of ice. Pronounce espresso as espresso and latte as latte.
For some extra conversational fluency, let's absorb 3 common coffee idioms. They sound effortlessly native. First one, full of beans.
That has to mean incredibly energetic, like someone who just slammed 3 shots of espresso.
Precisely. To be very full of energy and active, you could say, the office was quiet until the new manager arrived. Now everyone is full of beans.
Okay, next one.
Next, we have perk up.
To become more alert or happier, often after a quick boost.
Correct. I was falling asleep during the meeting, but the news about the promotion really perked me up. It applies to both your mood and your alertness.
And finally,
A great figurative phrase for a reality check. Wake up and smell the coffee.
this means to stop being in denial or to face the harsh facts of a situation.
Exactly. It implies that the necessary reality is so obvious, just like the smell of brewing coffee, that you have to acknowledge it. For example, if they keep ignoring their finances, they really need to wake up and smell the coffee before it's too late.
So what does all this mean for you, the learner? Your mission today is to put this fluency into practice.
Right.
Here is your fun, actionable dare. Your next coffee order must begin with either "I'll have" or "I'd like," and you must use the modifier extra or less for one ingredient, extra foam, less ice, extra shot.
And do it without staring down the barista.
Yes, practice that efficient confidence.
Automatic fluency in these high-frequency scenarios is really how you build true conversational ease. Thanks for diving deep into the sources with us today.
I am culturally and linguistically competent now. Bye.
See you next time.